Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Moto. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the best mods to do first when you get a TW200. So the TW200 has been around for so many years, and there's so many different riders driving this machine or riding this machine, and that's because it's so accessible. It's great for both advanced and beginner riders, and with such a low price tag, you know, a lot of people can get on one of these things for pretty inexpensive. So with such a big cult following for this machine, there are a lot of different aftermarket parts that are available for it. But in my opinion, there's certain ones that can kind of, wait a little bit. And then there's other modifications that I would recommend doing, as soon as you get the bike or as soon as you have the money to do it. Wow, that house is absolutely insane. So the first mod I would recommend doing is adding a skid plate to the TW200. I know that they come with one from the factory, but as we all know, that skid plate is it's like tin foil. It's like a can. It's just really bad, and it's not going to protect your engine from anything. And if you plan on doing any sort of off-roading, TW200 needs a aftermarket skid plate. End of story. So if you head on over to ProCycle's website, you can find the skid plate for around $100, and that's definitely one of the first modifications I would recommend. So the second mod I would recommend are rocks risers or any risers and a set of new handlebars. And the reason for that is the stock handlebars are really low, and if you plan on riding the bike for any more than like 45 minutes, it's going to kind of hurt your back after a while. At least that's the case with me. And the rocks risers will help bring the handlebars up a little bit, and it'll allow for a lot more comfortable seating position. And also, if you're off-roading, the rocks risers will help when you stand up on the bike, because like I said, the stock handlebars are really low, and I'm 5'9", 5'10"-ish with boots on, and the stock risers are so low that you're kind of hunched over, and it's really not comfortable. And adding handlebars not only will spice up the look, but it'll also help in the case of a drop. They're a lot less likely to bend or break than the stock bars. So the third modification that I would recommend for this bike after purchasing one would be to get new foot pegs. The stock foot pegs are basically a joke. I know a lot of bikes come with stock foot pegs that are really, really skinny, but I just don't recommend them, especially for off-roading and even just sitting down in general. I know a lot of weight isn't on your feet, but if you plan on going on longer rides, you're going to be sitting in these bikes all day long, and having a foot peg that is so narrow kind of gets like to dig into your foot, and it gets really annoying. So I have these aftermarket foot pegs. I believe they're from Amazon, and they were not expensive at all. They did not break the bank by any means, but they certainly add to the comfort of the T-dubs for longer trips, and also add a lot more grip for off-roading and standing up on the bike. And this list is in no particular order, but it's just the mods that I would recommend you getting when you get your T-dubs. So number 4 on the list would have to be some sort of a rack. I love to commute on the T-dubs. I take this thing to work all the time, and I take it on back roads. I go an hour or two upstate New York and stuff like that. And I love ripping around on this bike, but for longer trips, you're going to want something besides a backpack to carry some luggage. And don't get me wrong, backpacks work great and all, but you really are limited to the space on a backpack. So by adding a storage rack on the back of your bike, you can really add a lot of different things. For example, I have the Rotopax container on the back of my bike right now, so it adds an extra gallon of gas, and I'm able to travel a lot farther on these little adventures. But I've used my rack for all sorts of things. I've used it for mounting my tripod. I've had my GoPro on there. I've had luggage. I've had tools. So, for around $100, you can get a rack like mine, and it's really worth its weight in gold. Being on a motorcycle, you have to understand that you're not going to have a lot of storage to begin with, but by adding a rack, it just helps, have that little sense of security. If you want to run to the store and get something, you're a lot more likely to be able to do it with a rack than with a bike that just doesn't have anything. And the fifth and final mod that's super cheap as well, but I'd highly recommend doing, is adding some sort of LED light to the headlight, whether that be a JNS, full kind of light kit, or just an H4 bulb. Right now, I just have an H4 bulb on the bike, and it seems to work pretty good, but I do want to change the housing altogether and probably get like a blacked out JNS headlight. But for budget conscious people like myself, at the time the H4 bulb was like 20 or 30 bucks, and that was the way to go, and it's been fine ever since. It's also really easy to install. The halogen bulb on this bike is not good at all for riding at night, and it's kind of unsafe if you ask me. You know, back roads like this where there's no street lights or anything can get pretty dark at night, and I wouldn't recommend just riding around the T-dubs at night on these back roads. You know, if you have to, you have to, but with the stock bulb, it's really not good. You can't see at all. You know, you could see maybe 100 feet in front of you, if that. And along with having an LED bulb, I also put LED blinkers, and that's just because I like being seen. You know, I want these cars on the road to know that I'm here, and the LED blinkers, not only do they last longer, but they also look a lot brighter. And if you're the type of person that really likes to stick with the halogen bulb, that's totally fine, but I would recommend probably some sort of auxiliary light. In this case, I have Rigid Industries LED pods on here, but any, you know, Amazon LED pod or LED light would work. Just something for other drivers to see you, and also for you to be able to see farther distances at night. If you live in a city where you have lights all around, it's probably not that big of a deal, but if you live anywhere in like a back country or back roads, I'd highly recommend changing that. Alright, so I'm going to pull over here and just do a quick walk around on the bike and, you know, of all the modifications that I have done to it. And if you guys recognize this area, this is actually the same area I did my TW200 review video way back when. So we'll pull over right here and I will talk about the mods. Okay, so starting off with the first mod that I was talking about, I really like this Ricochet skid plate. It's way more solid, and not only is it thicker and more solid, but it also protects more of the engine. As you can see, it kind of fans out here and, you know, really just adds for that extra protection up top. And for only 100 bucks, you're going to be saving yourself a lot of money, because if you do any off-roading and you hit your case and crack it, it's going to be a big nightmare, and it's also probably going to be a lot of money. So moving on to number 2, as you can tell, the Rocks risers are holding the Woods High Pro Taper bars. And you don't have to go with this exact combination, but the reason I went with this is Pro Taper is a really well-known company, and I like their stuff. And I also really like Rocks. They're made in USA, and they have a lot of good reviews. And this was definitely one of the more expensive mods that I've done on the bike so far, because not only did I do Pro Taper bars, the Rocks risers, but I also did Pro Taper grips as well. And it wasn't too expensive by any means, but I definitely think it was worth the price. When I first got this bike, one of the first things I noticed is after like 45 minutes, my back really started to hurt on longer rides. And I looked it up online on some of the TW200 forums, and a lot of people would either recommend the handlebars or recommend replacing the seat. And I do eventually want to do probably like a seat concept seat, but those are a lot of money, and for that price I decided to sway away from that idea and do a couple of other modifications instead. So depending on what seat you get, you can probably get your bars and your risers for around half the price of a seat, because I was looking at seat concepts and they're around like $200 to $300 depending on which one you get. So not only was I able to save some money by using these instead of doing a seat, but I was also able to take the rest of the money that I saved and put it into other modifications. So the third mod are these foot pegs. Like I said, they are from Amazon. They were, I think, like 20 bucks, maybe 30 bucks, but you can buy more expensive ones on ProCycle and they're like $80. But I've had these for a pretty good amount of time now. I've beaten them up, and they have had no problems whatsoever. They're pretty grippy, as you can tell, and they don't really have too much vibration that goes through them, so I don't mind them. And if you're on a really big budget, I definitely recommend getting these. You know, they literally take 5 minutes to install, and they're probably one of the cheapest mods I have on the entire bike. So modification number 4 is this rack right here, and I know you can't really see it because this Rotopax is on there, but let's take this off, spin it again. So the Rotopax kind of makes it look a little weird without the actual container on it, but as you can tell, this is just the rack itself, and it has a lot of little tie-down points to be able to put some luggage and stuff like that. And this wasn't that expensive. It was also made in USA, so I really like that. But obviously keep in mind that the TW200 is limited with its weight capacity here on the back. This weight is kind of pushing it as it is. I think it's like 7 pounds, they say, for the back subframe here. So with this rack and the gallon of gasoline, that's already kind of pushing it. But if you just have this rack, you can definitely have, you know, some items on here without having to worry about it. And there's a lot of different racks that are made for the TW200. I just went with this one because it's a little more streamlined than some of the other ones. But if you're looking for a more like utilitarian style, there's definitely a lot of options out there. And the final modification that I recommend is the LED lights. So as you can tell, I just have an H4 bulb in there right now. That's the stock housing. And I also have LED blinkers up here at the front. And I really like that because it allows the cars on the road to see you a lot better. You kind of stand out more. And for night riding, it definitely makes a world of a difference. And also, if you want to spend a little bit of money, these rigid pods work really well. Put the high beam on. But, you know, you don't need rigid pods. I've had Amazon pods on my truck, and they work absolutely great. I spent like 20 bucks on them, and I've had them for probably 2 years now. The only thing I recommend if you do get Amazon pods is make sure that they are waterproof, and it might even be a good idea to kind of go around and seal them with like a little bit of caulk or some sealant, because the first pair of Amazon lights that I got said they were waterproof, but they weren't made that well. So over time, probably over like 6 months, they ended up getting water in them and stopped working. But anyway, guys, that's about it. This is my 2021 TW200, and those are probably the first mods I would do and what I would recommend for this bike. Obviously, there's so many other mods you can do. You can do an exhaust, you can do a new seat, but at the end of the day, it's really up to you what you want to do first. A couple mods that I don't have that I really want to get, like I said, are the seat. I also really want to get some sort of like a slip-on exhaust. I'm looking at the DG exhaust, but maybe the FMF. And also, if you do any sort of off-roading, more so than I do, that's for sure, I would also really recommend getting some sort of bark busters or hand guards. And not only will that help you protect your clutch and brake levers, but it'll also protect your hands. But man, this bike is a lot of fun. I'm really happy that I purchased it. If you're in the market for a T-Dubs, I would definitely keep looking because they're worth the wait. I know right now that because of COVID and everything going on, I've had a lot of people commenting saying that they've ordered them or they're looking for them and it's taking forever. But I definitely hold on tight because, you know, these bikes are great. They're a lot of fun. They're inexpensive. And if you can get your hands on one of them, you'll have them for a lifetime. So I know this was a short video and I apologize, but I wanted to get something out there to you guys. I've had a busy week here at work and just regular life stuff, but hopefully you guys enjoy the video. If you have any questions, definitely let me know in the comment section down below. If there's any modifications that you would add to this list or that you would do first, also put that in the comment section. I'd be really curious to see what you guys have to say. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. This is Most Remoto, and I'll talk to you guys later.